6 o'clock, so I'll get it started. Everett is down in Vancouver, I think at the Sauder School of Business. So he's joining us remotely this evening. I want to start by acknowledging traditional territories of our Inkwetama and Silk people, as well as our Métis communities. As you know, there'll be a decision made today on one of the 4 options before the board. Just a reminder to everyone, it could be emotional to keep the environment respectful.
Oh, Daryl, it has to stay open.
Has to stay open
Yeah.
for public meeting. Okay, just get here. I do have commentary from the public gallery because it is a board meeting. I'd ask you to refrain from it. If it happened a second time, I would ask you to leave. And that's just because it's a discussion of the board. But just a reminder of that on safe school policy. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda circulated? Moved by trustee Ward, seconded by trustee Kent Laidlaw. Anyone opposed? Carried. Minutes of the open meeting held February 11th. Motion to accept, moved by trustee Rayner, seconded by trustee Jepson. Anyone opposed? That is carried as well. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, you have 2 reports from the closed meetings, February 11th and February 17th for your information. And with that, we will move to the Indigenous Education Report, which is Angela McIver.
Good evening, everyone. Joining you tonight mostly to share about our recent How Are We Doing report for 2024-25. But before I get started with that, I know you all have my written package. I just really want to highlight, I put a big focus on a lot of the great work that our language teachers are doing in our district. And I took a lot of really specific details from the language teachers. So take a peek at that because there's some really, really great work going on in our schools, teaching Intlekatmuk and Syilx language. So I just wanted to highlight that before I got started with the How Are We Doing report. So for 2024-25, there were really no big surprises or changes from last year. There were some subtle differences. When I'm talking about the data, I am going to be comparing with our provincial percentages. So just before I start, I just do want you to understand that approximately 40% of our district are Indigenous students. And when you're thinking about the comparisons against the provincial average, their average is 11 or 12%. So we have a really, not a really high, but we have a high population of Indigenous students in our district. So just keep that in the back of your mind when I'm doing some of those comparisons. And the first piece of data that I want to speak to is about students in our alternate ed programs. The First Nations Education Steering Committee has really highlighted that is an area they want to look at because we have a really high percentage of Indigenous students here in our district, and not just in our district, but all over the province. But here in our district, 29 out of 37 students in the alternate program are Indigenous. That is 78%, which is high in comparison to the provincial average of 41%. So I just wanted to highlight that information, but I also did want to add to that piece that the pieces I do know about our alternative ed program in our district is that the high schools do a really detailed job at ensuring that everything is in place before students are put into our alternate ed program. There are policies in place for students who do, parents who do ask for their students to go, and they aren't just plunked in. There's several things that are put in place before our students are put into that program. Just wanted to mention that piece. The other piece, oh yes, go ahead.
Overall, it's been reducing over the years, though, right?
Yes, and the other thing I should add to that piece is the overall number of students in alternative ed, not just Indigenous, but overall amount are less than last year anyway. The other piece, I know what I mentioned before when I talked about the previous year's How Are We Doing report, our scores in literacy and numeracy, although are higher than a provincial average, they are concerning. And that is also not just for our district, it is provincial wide that we really need to take a look at our literacy and our numeracy scores. Just over half of our population are proficient in FSA scores in literacy in grades 4 and 7. I wanted to pull out a piece of information for literacy assessment for grade 10. For our Aboriginal students, 34 are proficient, and that is higher than the provincial average of 25%. In grade 12, our literacy assessment for Aboriginal students, they are 38% proficient, and that is lower than the provincial average of 52%. So literacy assessments in grade 10 and 12 are very concerning. Less than half of our Aboriginal students are proficient in literacy. So I know in speaking with our district staff, focusing on grade 10, those upper grades is something we want to look at. I know we've got the literacy and numeracy coaches in place right now for our elementary students, but this piece of data might indicate that more is needed for the upper grades. I'm gonna bop over to our numeracy scores in grades 4 and 7. Again, overall, just over half of our population are proficient in FSA scores in numeracy. We are higher than provincial average again. Our grade 4 results are showing growth, which is really good. And we've shown growth from last year's results, as you can see.
And
Yep.
on the math one, it looks like overall, all our grade 4 and 7s aren't doing that well.
Yes, in comparison with Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal students, you're absolutely correct. That's
Do we know what the provincial average for all students is for on track?
46% for grade 4.
No,
And
for all.
for all, no, I don't have that information. Just per grade.
Yes.
In grade 10, just 14% are proficient in numeracy, again, lower than our provincial average of 25%. And then when I looked at the information for math courses for grade 12 in pre-cal, calculus, and the foundations of math, the information that popped out for me there were Aboriginal students who are enrolled in senior math courses is significantly lower than their non-Aboriginal peers. However, Indigenous students that are entering those courses, they are doing really well and they are successful, but we need to make an effort to increase our Aboriginal student participation in those upper math and advanced courses.
That's probably like you're reporting on this as the Indigenous principal, but it's every school. Like working on this with math, literacy.
And not just a district issue, it's provincial.
So are we doing work with the counselors so that students know why they need that math course, because they might be looking at something in a trade, and that's, so linking that back early on.
Actually part of the work they're doing in their course selection. Those schools hold sessions with parents, especially as they're transitioning into grade 10, about, the recommended path, or if you're thinking about this, these are the courses that you're going to need. Just overall, we have concerns about the number of students going in to the math or the senior sciences, because we're seeing a drop overall, which links back to our numeracy and our literacy results. Because if you don't have the numeracy, upper level sciences and upper level math, it becomes much more difficult. One of the positive things that we've had this year, and Angela touched on it, our coaches have been pretty universally supported. The IEC came out very strongly in our meeting on Monday that they really value the role of the coaches, so it's supporting Indigenous language. But we also talked about maybe it's not literacy and numeracy, maybe it's just a general coach, so we can have more of a K-12. The focus this year right now is K-7, because we know you have to have that solid foundation, but we're seeing a need to extend that work up into high school.
For an overall trend, is the district flat, going down or going up?
It varies. I know, like I mentioned, the grade fours, their scores were going up. But as you know, cohorts are different, so it's really hard to,
We have a little bit of a valley
yeah.
kind of that's going, so highest achievement is 2020, 2021, and that's a provincial trend. And then drop, and then for most, we're seeing it go up. Although it's only the 5 years, so we need to know, like, are these 2 last years where it started to increase, is that gonna be a long-term trend, or are we gonna see a dip later on? Our historical data kind of goes like this, depending on the cohorts.
And like grade 4 to 10 looks like a big drop.
It's a big drop.
Yes.
We're probably most concerned about grade 10, because that opens or closes doors for you in terms of post-secondary, or increases the length of time that you are in high school, because you may have to upgrade or come back and pick up some other courses. But you know, there's gaps that have formed for the kids in these grades. So it's, you know, how do we address that? MSS is doing some really good work around baseline assessments, like a baseline skills assessment. And then we have some extra learning support classes that are going on over there. So they're trying to, you know, fill in the gap so that kids are closer to grade level, so that they'll be more successful in their classes.
Go ahead.
And then Dave, and then you, then me. Yep.
And do you see, like, across the province where it sounds like if grade 10 is really our hitting points, grade 6, 7, and 8, it's instrumental that we do something different. Like, are we gonna take a look at getting kids outside and more engaged and measuring things in a different way than out of a class? Like, these are shocking numbers. This is important.
And as you know, from an Indigenous worldview, mindset, that's always the goal, into bringing the kids out on the land, connecting them to their natural world. I mean, that's from an Indigenous lens, that's always been the objective.
Dave, then John, then myself.
So getting these number, Angela and Courtney, so. Like Leah says, alternatives are changing, but I see, you know, developing, there's like 38 or so students there. So now are those students with the ISA workers and IEC, can we concentrate and put a concerted effort on, say, those kids that are right on the
Right on the cusp or the bubble. We work to identify the kids that we would say are bubble kids, that it could go one way or another, and ensure that there's supports in place. It also ties into our DVR around our plan for graduation for the kids. We do ours differently than other places in the province. We actually presented on it last year at BCSTA, that it's a group that comes together. It's not about going through their story again, because at that point we should know their story. It's what are the concrete actions we're going to do to improve the outcome and move towards graduation. What you'll see is our grad rates have gone up again, and our grad rate for Indigenous students is actually higher than for our resident students, which is a positive development. So we know that piece is working. We're concerned about the gaps that are developing. Like the province, we know that there's an impact from attendance. You know, what we've seen since COVID is attendance rates have not gone back to pre-COVID levels. It's stayed consistent or it's rising, which is a concern. And this just isn't Indigenous students. This is like students across the board. If you've missed more than 10% of the year, they define you as chronically absent. The percentages are getting very high It's not unique to us. It's a province-wide trend. They've actually created new reports it's called Power BI. It's what we pull from the ministry data that you can look at the attendance in your schools and track it over time for cohorts and for individual students. So it's nice to have that data because attendance data is oftentimes there was no easy report to pull so that you could get that data. We know that their achievement it's a complex, multi-layered issue. We're chipping away at it with the different pieces, and I appreciate our IEC, you know, being in partnership with us of what are some different ways that we can try to engage students in their learning. And I will say, you know, they're also doing some supports on the reserve as well, you know, whether bringing in tutors, you know, a cultural support worker, you know, it's nice to have a real partnership. Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, I kind of don't want to ask you these questions because you're the reporter on them. All these kids go to attend our schools. I'd be curious if we could have some kind of report as well as to complement this. What are we doing in our schools specifically? What do we need to do to support them? Like, I think we all agree that these kids are intelligent. And we know teachers know their kids probably better than an FSA assessment. And so I'm curious what that looks like. And I know in my other world, we had a lot of kids who barely graduated from high school. They're very intelligent. So I'd be curious, what are we doing to promote math, science, and literacy? And so I know from having kids, I know it's not easy to make your kid read and do stuff, but there's probably things that we're doing that maybe I'm not aware of that you could share with us. And I share you, not you, the district.
Yeah.
So,
I think the other piece for me on the what are we doing is when I look at the chronic absentee reports is how are we mapping back to those children? Because, you know, and if I think of it at MSS, PSS as secondary schools, it even gets compounded more because it's a semester system. So what are the strategies we need to have in place first at the elementary level so that, because if you're not attending, you're not going to be getting those foundational skills, which is going to roll into the higher grades. So if we map that out for those individual students, because part of it is how do we get them to school so that they are attending? And if there's multiple barriers, what do we need to do to remove those barriers? So I think that's a piece we need to. We're a small enough district. I think we can do that on an individual student basis to figure out what that roadmap is, because it's going to be different for different students.
Yes, and one of the things that we asked our engagement facilitators to do was to either through conversation or however they could was to talk to those families. They have about 60 or more students on their chronically absent list that they are trying to support in various ways, but they're going to try to, you know, have conversation and make a list of what are some of those barriers that are, what are the, you know, the common themes and how can we support those kids and families to get them here. But the one thing they did mention right off the cuff was technology and kids on phones, computers, staying up all night and just not being able to get to school. That was one of the things they came up with right away.
Yeah, I know we've talked to some parents about it. Taking these away at night and they go, well, can I? And I go, yes,
Yeah.
as a parent, you can, or shut the internet off in your home as well, or take the child's phone to your room and you'll know who's calling them at 2 a.m. or texting. But I know that's hard as a parent as well.
I had one more thing. Would I be right in drawing this line, like we've got higher Aboriginal completion rates than the average? But lower numeracy and literacy at the grade 10 levels. So would it be fair to say that we, like, compared to another high school, they're just not collecting the same data that we are because we're getting them all the way to the finish line? Whereas the other schools, they're not even attending, that percentage of students aren't even there?
See, it varies by district. I would say, like, we have a large Indigenous student population here. So some of our results look different as a result of that because our cohort tends to be larger than in other places. It really is dependent, and this is one of the things that Angela and I were talking about with the IEC, is it's an individual story for each of our kids. And I think what we do well, because we are a smaller high school or high schools, we know their story, we're connected to them, and we do the circle, you know, the hands at the bottom of the circle and wraparound supports. I will say our admin, our counselors, our SSTs, our teachers, to get these kids to the finish line for grad, I swear sometimes we want it more than they do. You know, we put everything that we can into it. We've seen improvements in the graduation rates. Now the piece is when they're graduating, do they have the skills for what they need later on in life? And I think that is more where our gap is, where in other places you would see that their graduation rate may not be as high, or, you know, even higher patterns of absences. It really varies and it really depends on families. But I think a good thing that our schools and our district does is we try our best to wrap around families and hear the individual voices and stories and figure out what is the barrier and how do we help them get through it. It's hard work though, because there is no one solution. You know, there's a lot of different challenges that our kids are facing. You know, like bright side around our alternate programs, you know, the overall number of kids going there has declined. And I think it's because we have a really strict protocol before we let you go. Like, even if it's a parent requesting to go to our alternate program, it doesn't work that way in every district. So that's something we put in place because we know that there are biases in the system. There's systematic barriers, you know, and to be honest, we want to try every last thing that we can do before we're letting kids go to the alternate program. That said, our alternate programs are really well run. And it's really dependent on the staff, and we have excellent staff at both CLC and the Bridge, and they make a huge difference for kids.
The other piece, Angela, too, you talked about getting more kids into senior math, senior sciences. The other piece I noticed in the report too, on course marks of C+ or better, you know, calculation foundations math, that was 100%, 61% for math and pre-calculus 10, English first people 61%. So those are the students who are taking on those courses are doing really well. So I think that's a positive piece there as well, that the students who are engaging in those courses got a C+ or better rate. And that speaks to when they're going to a post-secondary, they've got the foundational skills pretty solid. So I think that's a positive as well.
Also, just provincially, I'm seeing your numbers, our numbers around adult dogwoods. And I know Finesse was really, really strong around let's get away from an adult dogwood. And it looks like we're at 49% versus the province at 57. Did I read that right? So we are moving towards what Finesse says. Please stop pushing our kids into adult dogwood situations. That might be a little bit of a. Yeah.
And just to, maybe I'll give you the grad rates right now for, so 2024-25, 84% of our Aboriginal students graduated. And 80% were with a dogwood and 4% were with an adult dogwood. And those, that's higher than provincial average of 66% we have.
Wow. So this grade 10 intervention is like a really important and powerful piece. It's like, can we get there in grade 6 to have a similar team approaching? It feels like this works. Can we start it at a younger age so we have more options?
So we do collaborative, we do a slightly different model around elementary schools. We call them collaborative support meetings, which we use multiple data points, but we identify classes or students that are struggling, and we put extra interventions in place. One of the other things that we're doing is, one of the things that are targeted dollar support for Indigenous students is engagement facilitators. And they work with students who are struggling with attendance. what we used to do is we would concentrate most of our attention on our high school. And what we've recognized is if we can get to kids earlier, build a solid foundation, that once the habit's already developed in high school, it's really hard to break it. And, we have a success story here or there, but we've recognized building connections with kids earlier, being their person at the school so that they connect. Even if that's the only reason you're walking through the door is your relationship with someone, we're recognizing that that is having more impact. And we've reorganized our model around our engagement facilitators and what we do. We're always looking at constant improvement. If it's not working the way that we want it to, how do we go about changing it? And then looking at the data to see if it's actually making a difference. We assign schools, so they have home schools that they visit, 'cause it's actually a job shared position. And they work with the admin, so able to develop a relationship between the facilitator and admin, but really trying to catch kids young, because we know if attendance is bad in elementary, it only gets worse as they get to secondary because it becomes an ingrained habit or pattern. So really trying to ensure that we have better attendance in our elementary school. Not that, we don't follow up with our high school kids, because we do, but we just recognize maybe targeting kids earlier would have more prevention than trying to be reactive to the problem later on.
And the last thing I'll mention, since we're talking about attendance, I'll just give you our attendance rates for Aboriginal students, which are very high. 63% of students in grades K-7 were chronically absent, and that's about around the same as a provincial average. And 82.3% of students in grade 8-12 were chronically absent, and that's higher than the provincial average of 78%. So overall, the things that popped out, which we've all spoken about already, that our focus has been all along and still is our literacy and numeracy scores for all of our students, our attendance rates, and our students in our alternate programs, and looking at students getting into those higher math and science level courses for Aboriginal students.
Any other questions for Angela?
Just
John?
not for you, Ange, but
Yep.
on the chronically absent, 10% of the school year be about 20 days.
It's about 20 days.
Anything there and above is chronic.
They define it as chronic absence.
And we're
We'd be
looking
able to
at
know,
40s.
like, if we're calling a huge group chronic, if they're 10% or more, do we have some really chronic
Oh,
numbers?
yeah.
Yes.
We have some kids that maybe came first day of school. We continue to try to get them in, but like we have some that are largely absent from the system.
I don't know how far back you can look, but it'd be interesting to see, are those kids graduating?
The ones that don't attend and don't go to our alternate program, most of them would not be. They would be the ones that aren't making it to graduation typically. We have some that, vote with their feet and stop attending. And then they may come back later as a little bit more of a mature student, but still able to take courses at the high school level. They will often either pick up classes at Skies, or they will go to CLC because it's a more flexible environment. And we have a smaller ratio of staff to students there. Sometimes that gives them the support that they need. I think it was last month, Allison actually had that one of our students has already achieved all of their grad credits by the end of first semester. A real credit in bringing our adult dogwood numbers down is the good work that Allison and her team are doing at CLC. I think we have 12 or 13 kids at CLC that are eligible for graduation this year. I'm not sure how many are regular graduation and how many are adult dogwood, but we've made a concerted effort to have less adult dogwoods. That said, it's a path that exists for a reason, because for some students that makes sense for them in time. It's also possible to come back if you have the adult dogwood and you can work towards regular high school graduation. And that's a trend that I think is becoming more a national trend. Sometimes high school isn't 3 years for kids. They need longer. That's a really square peg trying to go into a round hole. Sometimes kids need longer than 3 years, or they need to achieve the dogwood first, so they have the confidence that they know that they can do it and then work towards their regular dogwood. But I'm concerned about our literacy and numeracy results because we want people to be able to pursue the post-secondary route that matters to them. So whether that's going to the workforce, whether that is going to trade school, whether it's going to college or university, we don't want doors closing. And one of the things that will be consistent across BC, and I would say Canada, bands are spending a lot of money on upgrading for their members because they may not have what they need in order to complete post-secondary. So there's upgrading that has to be done. So we've had discussions around that and what can we do so it's a more solid path forward.
What do you need support from the board for? What's the plan and how do we get there?
I would say the coaches are making a big difference. Being able to expand it out to the secondary level, I think would be huge. We have enough TTOCs now that we can do some in-service PD. We were able to try it with our grade 3 teachers. I would see some money towards in-service. We haven't been able to do it for the last few years because we haven't had enough TTOCs. But I think where we are right now, we would be able to do some in-service work and collaboration across our district, rather than our teachers being isolated. I'm seeing really good value for the dollar coming out of our coaching positions. And you know what? Our union, positive feedback from teachers, from our perspective and from admin, is the coaches are making a difference. And the union is actually supportive, if we can put extra dollars in coaching. So, it's nice that we're all aligned on those pieces. And we know it's made a huge difference with our Indigenous language teachers. We had huge turnover and it was very difficult to get anyone to stay for the entire year. They're feeling very well supported, and Angela talks about it in her Indigenous education report. Most of our Indigenous language teachers are not certified teachers, so they're teaching on a letter of permission. So the things that, we've been trained to do, lesson planning, classroom management, report cards, time management, the marking, like the grade system, you know what, it's really elbow to elbow support, and it's made a huge difference. We were only going to do it for a month at the beginning of the year, and then what we realized, it's a good support to have for the rest of this year. We were able to do it with some of the FTE we had this year. I'm hoping we'll have money that we can continue our coaching roles next year. But our turnover rate has been much lower for Indigenous language teachers. We did have one go off on mat leave, but she promises us she's coming back. So I'm hopefully gonna hold her to that. So.
The other thing we've been pushing through BCSK with teacher qualification services is because our language teachers are not certified, they're paid at a lower rate, and we're saying they need to look at those skills that are being brought in as a language teacher. Just because it hasn't necessarily been formalized through a master's at a particular post-secondary doesn't negate the language skills they're bringing. So we think if that happens, that will also help retain people. So that's something we're doing at that level, because it's to see if we can get TQS to move on that. So we think that'll be helpful as well.
Well, I think something else to consider is that Indigenous language programs are not really funded. So you're not gonna get continuity if we don't have normalized funding.
And I would say some of our political advocacy that we've done, like as trustees, and that our IEC has done, there is a new clause in the collective agreement that was just ratified that there are additional dollars for Indigenous language teachers that also applies to teachers on letters of permission. So you know what, it's gonna help close the gap, like there's still gonna be a gap, but it's gonna help make those positions more attractive. We're not the only district that's struggling to be able to staff those positions, but it's nice when you've advocated for something and then you see the fruits of those labor. So just something that we're happy and grateful for.
Thanks, Andy.
Next is the inclusive education, early learning and childcare report.
So, Adrienne, first year, doing early learning. So she took over our Ready, Set, Learn events. This is kind of like our early learning kindergarten preview. We invite families and their children in to come see what elementary schools and early learning is all about. It's a fun play-based environment. I know there were sand buckets and shovels this year. We had good attendance at some of our schools and a little bit slower at some of the others. We are noticing a trend with kindergarten. We used to get most of the registrations in February and March. Over the last 2 to 3 years, what we're seeing is registrations, we get a spurt in February and March, and then we kind of collect them till June. And sometimes our numbers are still low in June, and then we're not sure what they're going to be until the kids are showing up in September because we're getting late registration. So we're trying to push this out more on our Facebook page and our web page. We've asked for support from our local First Nations as well, just around registration and helping with those pieces. But Ready, Set, Learn is a great opportunity, low stress, high fun, to come in and see what each school is about. So did a really nice job with that. And then we also continued on with safety and care training through CPI. Because we have such a large number of EAs, we actually had to split them into 2 groups. So there was a fall session and a winter session. And we're just happy that those pieces are in place and our EAs were able to either get the skills or refresh their skills.
Reminder on what CPI stands for?
I'll let you.
Crisis prevention intervention training, non-violent crisis prevention intervention training.
Thank you.
Court question around registration for kindergarten. If I was a working parent and I just wanted to register online, that's pretty simple portal or?
I'd have to ask Simone. I think it's meant to be as user friendly as possible. But if they're struggling, we always say, you know, give us a call either at the school or our office and we'll walk you through it. Sometimes it's an overwhelming experience when you're a first time parent. I think that's probably where the most stress comes from. You know, if the application is the barrier, we just say, please come in, you know, and our principals are very flexible. They meet well outside the instructional day to accommodate that. We also use our ISAs to help support, you know, if they're not able to come in, we can go out to them. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to support whatever the barrier is. How do we help you overcome it?
And then Strong Start, would there be like a register today? Cause you know, you kind of have an idea of how many kids are in Strong Start.
So we push it out to our Strong Start, and part of the reason we do Strong Start is so that people can, well, one is to bring together community around children of the same age, you know, that parent community, but also start instilling those early learning skills. But it's also an introduction into what does that elementary school look like. So I think, you know, for anxiety when especially your first one's going off to kindergarten, I think it helps reduce that because, you know, they know the staff, they know the playground, all of those pieces, but we do send reminders out to our Strong Start. We also send them out to the Head Start programs that we have in our local First Nations as well. So yeah, we're trying to be more visible and pushing it out on social media, especially.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Not, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, you will notice that it is a thick package. It is 31 pages. Our principals are really going above and beyond. Just Simone always does helpful reminders on the front. So it's spring break from Monday until the March 27th. But looking at Nicola Canford, one of the great things that Lisa Nelson-Smith has done, because she's our healthy schools coordinator, she came in and did lessons around healthy foods. And they got to explore different types of food groups: wheat, beans, berries, yogurt. If you haven't been out to Nicola Canford, they also have a school garden. They keep chickens there. So they actually ended this unit by planting seeds. So it was a nice kind of full cycle of the healthy snack program. And there's lots of wonderful things going on at Nicola Canford, but I try not to steal your thunder from your path reports. At PSS, outdoor education adventures, wherever we can, the blessing of living in rural communities, we have access to, natural resources and wonderful places that aren't far out from our schools. And also that connection to the land, that active kinetic piece. Our admin team is doing a great job at PSS too. I continue to hear really positive feedback from the community and from staff. Looking at the Community Learning Center, they were doing a unit around earth science, but they actually did a cross-curricular project where they combined science and art. And they produced different artwork around the different solar system and planets. There's a lot of talented artists in our particular group of students that are going to CLC. If you ever get the chance, they actually have a bulletin board outside of their classroom, and Allison displays their work. I would say some of it is professional quality level. So if you have an opportunity to go, well worth the trip. Merritt Secondary School. The one I was going to choose to highlight is they're hosting a family information session as well as daytime sessions around course options and grad requirements. So this is some of the early work that we do of, what is your path through. We try to get people the information where it will work for them. We recognize we live in communities where not everyone works 9 to 5. So you know what, they may not be able to come during the day, they may not be able to come in the evening. So they've offered sessions at both times, trying to meet the needs of the communities. And I'm just going to give a shout out to the band as well. They actually went on a tour to our elementary schools, and it was very well received. So just credit to Ms. Dunbar there. Diamondville, World Read Aloud Day, given where our literacy is, anything that we can do to, promote literacy, the love of books. I would say Diamondville really benefits from their teacher librarian, Mrs. Cleveley. She is passionate about literature. She is dynamic in the library, and she works well and collaborates with other teachers. So she's a driving force that helps support literacy at both Diamondville and Central, because she is the librarian for both of those schools. JA, Mrs. Larson could not cut it back. So we have like 7 pages of events and pictures with the kids. And they're absolutely adorable. The one I'm going to talk about is Kindness Month. So they've been practicing being kind to everyone. And last time I was there, it was High Five Day. So they were keeping track of how many people they had given high fives to. So I think I high-fived close to 70 children out on the playground at lunchtime. But the part was getting out of your friend group or your comfort zone and making others feel included. And they were super engaged in the day and thought it was a great activity. So there's lots of wonderful things going on at JA. And there's just a happy energy when you go into JA.
Look at Mrs. Chickpea with her guitar.
Looking at Merritt Bench, one of the things I was going to highlight is science fair. For a district our size, we send a significant contingent to regional science fair. We're sending 44 this year. And I will give credit, especially to Bert, because he is our science fair guru and pumps it up. But I will say he's worked really well with his colleagues of administrators at other schools. Collettville did like a school-wide one, but we were able to see science fair projects at all of our elementary schools. And it was just really nice to see the kids step up. Misty and I originally got recruited to be judges, and then they had a plethora of judges. So then we decided we just wanted to hang out with the kids. So we did that instead and asked them about their projects. But you know what? Great opportunity for them to practice public speaking, to walk you through the learning process. And part of what Misty and I were doing was giving them feedback before the judges would come about, what they did well, what might work, be something that they might want to try differently when the judge came. But overall, just a great way to spend time with the kids. And then looking at Skies, One of the things they're working on right now is photography. So if you look at the pictures at the bottom, this is what our kids were able to produce. And I will say Skies is doing a really good job of trying to highlight, even though it's online education, how do you make those personal connections and tap into people's talents and gifts? So they've been working really hard on that. And I think what they submit to the superintendent's report really highlights, beyond, the typical version of an online school. Collettville, the one I wanted to highlight was their visit to the BC legislature. They got a shout out from our local MLA. From what I've heard, it was a great success and the kids enjoyed the trip. So just really great opportunities to see government in work and how that goes along. Looking at Vermilion Forks, the one that I was going to highlight is Tim Manuel, one of our Indigenous partners, was there to do traditional games with the students at VFE. And really nice that we're able to access presenters that will go to both sides of our district. Sometimes that's a struggle, when your schools aren't beside one another. So really appreciate willing to share his talents and gifts, not only in Merritt, but also in Princeton. And then looking at Merritt Central Elementary, Mrs. Omari goes above and beyond. So there's lots of wonderful things that she's included in here. The one I was going to highlight is the try-a-trade. So 5 of the grade 7 students went with peers across the district to go to Thompson River University, and they got to have the hands-on experience. So the piece there is give you a taste of it before you're coming up to a secondary school and possibly a later career path for you as well. And the other one I'm going to mention too, although I only try to mention one, they were basketball champs, and pretty proud of that as well. And then MSS band concert. Heard really good things about our band. We're lucky to have Miss Dunbar over there leading it. And one of the things we looked at was we typically did grade 7 band, which was mandatory, but our band program is still thriving, even though it's moved to 8 to 12. And real credit to the good work that she's doing in the classroom every day to provide arts education, which is sometimes a difficult thing in rural school districts. So just overall, this is a really great way to head into spring break, showing all the wonderful things that our kids and our admin and our teachers are doing. And you see lots of pictures of parent volunteers in there as well. So really appreciate that our community comes out to help and support our schools.
And just before you try to claim that teacher with the guitar down there, just so you know, she's an MSS grad. Okay. Just so you know, she came up through here. Great to see all that positive things happening. So quite often we're looking for seeing things that we're struggling with. So it's nice to see all that good work that isn't reflected in tests and other things, but seeing the kids thriving. Any questions on the superintendent's report? The next piece is the potential school closure. Couple of things. Just want to walk people through how the discussion is going to happen. Our practice has been to have the discussion before we get to an actual motion. Following that, same practice tonight. Also, we've done when a motion comes up, if it's passed by the board, it passes or fails. We've never done a roll call vote, so I won't be doing that unless one of you asks for that specifically. When we get through the discussion, and I'll go around the table and hit Everett last and then go around again. I just want to make sure I don't miss Everett because he's coming in remotely. When it looks like you're through discussion, I'll ask for a motion on one of the options. The options will be up on the screen. They're also in your package, and I'll go over those in a minute. If that motion has a mover and seconder and passes, then the other 3 options will die on the table because you will have accepted one. If that motion doesn't get a plurality, then it will be removed, and I'll look for a motion on one of the other options. And then, if one of them does pass, that requires a school closure, it then will need 3 readings of a bylaw. There would be the first and second reading. It would need unanimous support to go to third reading. If it doesn't go to third reading, then it would be third reading in April. So just so you're aware of that. Also, on your email, this is late. As of 6:18, we have a response. We're waiting for a response from Coldwater Band. They have sent a response in. I don't know if you want me to read that into the record or just give you guys a few minutes to read their response. And have me summarize that. I can do either on that because I think it's important since we asked them for a response. And as I say, that just literally just came in. So normally with our correspondence, we'd say it missed the cutoff. I think this is so important. It needs to be part of that discussion tonight. So before you is the 4 options, and I'll just go over them again. And I'll ask if you want me to read the response from Coldwater Band or not. There's no school closure, which was the first option. The second option was to close Merritt Central Elementary School. Merritt Central students transfer to Collettville Elementary School, and the French immersion program moves to Diamondvale to create a dual track school. The third option is close Collettville Elementary. The French immersion program moves to Diamondvale Elementary as a dual track school. The fourth option is close Collettville Elementary. The French immersion program moves to Merritt Central Elementary as a dual track. And I just want to make sure you've all had an opportunity to look at what came from Coldwater Band and Council this evening.
I wouldn't mind reading.
Okay. I don't have my glasses here with me. So on behalf of Chief and Council of Coldwater Indian Band, we are writing to formally express our strong opposition to the proposed closure of Merritt Central Elementary School. As outlined in our local education agreement, Merritt Central Elementary is identified as a school of choice for the Coldwater Indian Band students. A significant number of our youth currently attend this school, and its closure would create a substantial and negative impact on our students and families. Merritt Central School provides an environment where many of our students are thriving. The school offers high levels of support, particularly for our students with special needs, including those with autism and other higher learning needs. Staff and administration at Central have developed strong, supportive relationships with our students and families, and we have seen meaningful success through these relationships. In addition to the educational impacts, we are also concerned about the emotional impact this closure would have on our youth. Many of our students have built strong connections with their teachers, support staff, and peers at Merritt Central. For students who are already facing challenges or require additional supports, being displaced from a familiar and supportive environment can create anxiety, stress, and disruption to their sense of stability and belonging at school. Additionally, Merritt Central's location is critically important. Many of the families face economic challenges, and the school's accessibility within walking distance for a number of students ensures that our youth are able to attend the school consistently and safely. We would also like to acknowledge the historic significance on the land on which Merritt Central sits. The land was donated by William Vogt, who has direct family ties to the Coldwater Indian Band. This connection further deepens the relationship between the community and the school. For those reasons, we respectfully ask that the school board reconsider the proposed closure of Merritt Central. We urge the board to honor the commitment made within the local education agreement and local First Nations and uphold the principles of truth and reconciliation by keeping Merritt Central Elementary School open. Sincerely, Chief and Council, Coldwater Indian Band. And with that, I'm just going to start around the table. I'm going to start with my right.
No pressure. I guess since we read that one, there is another letter that we should probably
Yeah,
acknowledge as well.
Yeah,
Just,
there was a letter from, you're talking one from Upper Nicola Band?
yeah.
So the one from Upper Nicola Band, which is in your package, referred to support for moving students to the Coldwater, from Upper Nicola to Collettville School. So you have, and that's about 25 students from the survey. So you have two bands with two very different pieces on that. So, so you've got both of those, but, and you also have the, before I forget, you have the delayed petition bylaw, although it's number, because it's correspondence, it's down at number 11. I would suggest you also want to include discussion of that at this time as well. It's just, that's where correspondence falls in our agenda, but my expectation would be that would be coming up now as well. And with that, over to trustee Kent Laidlaw.
It's not actually in the package, Upper
Oh.
Nicola's letter.
Oh, I'll read another letter. Excuse me.
It's a BCR.
Oh, that's right. So it reads, whereas School District 58 has presented 4 potential elementary school closure scenarios affecting Merritt schools. Whereas Upper Nicola Education held community engagement sessions on November 18th, 2025 and January 29th, 2026, and conducted direct outreach with families, whereas there are 25 Upper Nicola students currently enrolled at Central Elementary School, whereas the majority of families, approximately 88 to 92%, support scenario 2, whereby Central would close and students would move together to Collettville School, whereas 2 to 3 students, approximately 8 to 12%, have expressed interest in attending Nicola School to support their Silk language and cultural continuity. And one parent has indicated they may consider homeschooling, and whereas one family has indicated the wish to continue French immersion and attend the French immersion program, whereas families have expressed concerns regarding staff continuity, education supports, overcrowding, teacher workloads, and transportation impacts, particularly for younger students. Therefore, be it resolved, Chief and Council of Upper Nicola Band hereby supports scenario 2 as presented by School District 58, provided that Upper Nicola students remain together at Collettville School. Advocate that no Upper Nicola students are required to enroll in French immersion unless chosen by a parent or guardian. Request confirmation that adequate and where necessary enhanced educational supports, including educational assistance, to be maintained to ensure student success, and request that transportation routes be reviewed to minimize extended travel times for primary age students, and continue to support families who chose alternative education programs, including Nicola School, homeschooling in accordance with family preferences. So that's the 2. We asked both bands for their, because they have students who attend via bus. That's the 2 pieces there. Now I think I'm really over to you this time, Mr. Kent Laidlaw.
Okay, since you brought up the petition, I do just want to highlight a concern that I had with the petition itself. There was quite a lot of names that were vetted out, and it was said to be for privacy purposes. Generally speaking, my understanding of a petition is that you are publicly declaring your support for an issue. And so if you're vetting names, I kind of have some concerns about that. I also do have a question though, to Superintendent. Can you speak a little bit to the predicted decrease in the student population over the next few years? Is it possible to tell which catchment areas they're in, or is that sort of too much of an unknown at this point?
That was, the catchment is too much of an unknown, so we have our overall numbers. So we've done projections out to 2030, 31. When we're asked for a projection from the ministry, they do a 3-year capture. Like we have been saying, we're projecting declining enrollment for the foreseeable future. By 2030, 31, we are projected to be down another 227 students from our current enrollment. That's in Merritt alone. Princeton is a little bit more stable. We're projected to lose another 20 students by 2031. We've also learned, Angela attended the FINESC regional meeting, and FINESC provided documentation around what their projections are. They went out even further for a 10-year span, and they're projecting that we'll be down 408 students. So adding to the over 500 that we've lost over the past 20 years, it's a significant overall decline. What's driving some of this is birth rates, where there's not as many babies being born in Merritt or in Princeton. Families are tending to have smaller number of children, but the big one is there's aging populations in both Princeton and Merritt. The average age is in the late 40s for both Merritt and Princeton. I think it's 46.5 for Merritt and 47.5 for Princeton. But when we're, in conversations with city council, with real estate agents, what we're hearing is lots of people who are buying houses. They're still selling in Merritt, thank goodness. But it's a lot of people retiring from the coast who are retirement or nearing retirement age, and they're not coming with children. So we're seeing a shift in our demographics, and we're seeing that in our kindergarten numbers overall. This is also a matter of, as we have smaller classes come in, it's going to have an impact on MSS. So we have about 600 students, give or take. Sometimes we're up a little bit, sometimes we're down a little bit at MSS. But when we have classes across the district where we have 170 grade 12s graduating and we only have 98 kindergartens, it doesn't take long to see where these projections are coming from. So we have concerns around these numbers. In the past, I think a lot of the decline was gradual, and in some ways a little bit hidden, because it was just a few less students. What has happened in the past 2 years, especially, is declining enrollment has accelerated faster than what the ministry projected and faster than what the district projected. We're also in a different economic climate today than we have been in the past. It's very clear from the provincial budget that there is not extra money. And I'm sure the government will say they put more money than ever into the education system, which technically is true. The overall dollar value probably will be the highest it's ever been. The problem is with inflation, and typically the more money that goes into the system, it's to cover off wages. So, we're grateful that the collective agreement with the teachers was ratified by both sides, because that gives us labor stability. But there's a 12% raise over the 4 years. So the government typically puts that money in. So they'll put that 12% in, which will raise the overall value. But the actual money that we're seeing and the cost of goods continues to rise. And probably where we're hit hardest with this, other than the budget that we're funded with basically bums and seats. So we're funded out on our student enrollment, because we have aging infrastructure in our district. Our newest school is close to 20 years old, and that's Nicola Canford. We're already spending about 15 cents on every dollar going towards maintenance and operations. The older a building is, the more maintenance that it takes. We have significant deferred maintenance across our district. I think it's about 9.5 million when you add it all up right now. And we think it's going to hit closer to 10.5 by next year. Not only are we tightening belts due to declining enrollment, every year we apply for capital projects. And Daryl can probably speak more to this. We applied for almost $4 million in capital projects, which are like our highest priority, and we received just over $1 million. So there's a $3 million gap between what we identified as we need these projects done and what the ministry will be supplying.
Does that include the AFG? Oh, sorry,
Through the chair, please.
sorry.
So John, and then yourself.
I don't wanna be rude here, but we've heard a lot of this already, and I think what I'd like to provide is my thoughts on the whole process. When it comes to me, I don't wanna
Yeah.
ask
Okay,
Courtney or
yeah,
or Mark any questions. I think I have all the information I need.
that's fine.
I just wanted to know if those dollars, those capital dollars, the 4 million, does that include the AFG dollars? Annual for some, so that's separate. And that's usually about 800, 2 million, right?
Just over eight.
800.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else from you, Jamie?
No, thank you.
Sure, I just want to start by saying, this is hard. This isn't easy. There's a bit of a rhetoric out there that, like the board versus the public, and I kind of resent that. I think that our board is a good representation of the public and our parents and our community, so, I feel like I am the public, so you wanna come down here and look me in the eye. I get it, I'm right here, I'm with you, I go to the same doctor's office, I go to the same grocery store. I don't have a vacation home here, then I spend half my year, this is my community and, I care about it, and that makes this decision really hard. So with that, to address the petition that we received, essentially what that petition is asking us to is to delay for a year. Which would mean no school closure at this time, which would mean about $500,000 in layoffs or cuts, which I don't think is responsible for us. So last year we went through some tightening of our budgets, and we went through and had number of cuts to programs and services that was not fun or easy to do. We lost grade 7 band, we lost some transportation, school district, their school board, office staff, administration staff. We made some cuts last year already. And if we were to delay this decision by another year, we would have to do a similar thing again, this year. And I don't think that's the smartest thing to do, for students. So, where I'm coming from when I'm trying to make this decision is what's best for the students. And taking that money out of the classroom even more, seems irresponsible from our perspective, so from my perspective. So, essentially that petition is asking us to do option one, and I just disagree for those reasons. But I do want to thank the community and parents and everyone that came out to all of our, I forget how many, 16 engagement sessions that were fairly well attended for the most part. There were some things that we hadn't thought of that were brought up there. I think one of our options that we had was kind of unilaterally squashed by most people and saying that seems like the worst one. So, and we went, okay, that's great. And then conversely, another option, I think, which is option 4, kind of came out of that, like, well, if you're gonna move Colville, maybe you can move it to Central instead of Diamondville. So there was some options that we presented that were quashed, and then some other ones that came up. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that came out and participated. I think that it was not always easy, not always fun, but we had some good conversations and we learned a lot through that process. So yeah, I think I'm with John, and I think I have what I need, but I'd like to hear kind of what the rest of the trustees would like to say.
We leave over to trustee Rayner.
Yeah, first, I'd like to thank the senior management, the staff, shareholders, stakeholders, students, family, and the communities. A lot of work and time went into this. It's amazing. And the data that was collected for it has been extraordinary and very complete. Like, I'm very impressed. I agree with Justin that it would be irresponsible of this board to push this decision onto the next board, whoever that may be. There's just too much at stake. My decision will be to keep the well-being, safety, the character, and the culture of the schools together, while at the same time responding to the financial aspects and the ongoing deterioration of the buildings and the deferred maintenance. They play a vital role in us moving forward as a healthy school district. I think moving a whole school, staff and students together, which we heard was the main priority, is really in my mind for my decision. And I was told at one of the meetings, just sitting around by a teacher or administrators, that a full school is a happy school. So we have empty schools, and I think we need to make a decision to make them full. So I will be, I think there's a lot of things that came up, like sidewalks and this kind of thing. Well, we've had that discussion in Princeton where we have no sidewalks, we don't get snow removal sometimes, and we've gone to our council and we've demanded speed bumps and we've demanded crosswalks with lights. And that can be done here as well. So I think we could work around safety issues. I think I'm pretty sure we're gonna close the school, but that being said, I think that school that becomes empty, in Princeton, we've got a beautiful daycare out of an old school that we've gone, and there's a theater group in there as well, and some community sports. That same thing I think could happen here, or it could be a cultural center for the Indigenous community. So I'm like John, I pretty well have my my decision made. Go ahead, John. Oh, sorry, Chair, you have to say.
I'm going over to John now.
Good.
I didn't say I had a decision made. I said I think we've learned from it.
Yeah, sorry.
For myself, this is very, very difficult, and the emotion coming from our parent advisory groups, our public meetings, it's very, very difficult because parents know their kids and better than schools do. And but also as a trustee, we do have a fiduciary responsibility, and for myself, I have a really strong responsibility to the Indigenous community as well. And with that in mind, like I've been chewing on this a long time with our board, the history of Indigenous people in this valley. You'll notice we don't have cold water in Upper Nicolet here. Right, and I think that it's part of well, the school board's gonna do whatever they're gonna do anyway. Right, but they did send BCR and a letter from chief and council. And so I really take that to heart. But I think I speak on the whole board when all those public meetings that we went to, both in the communities and at Central and MSS, it's really, really hard to make a decision. And I know that for myself, I hear the arguments around old schools needing lots of work, and also selling a school to maybe pay for some infrastructure. Those are things that'll probably have to be done over the next 3-4 years, right? And I like the dialogues we've had as a board. I think that the people listening online or being here, they need to know that we don't all agree, right? But that's okay. We are a school board, and once a decision is made, we will go together and support it, right? And even if my wishes aren't agreed to by the board, I'm not going to stop talking to people about it. We're going to move forward and keep supporting kids. So that's a little bit about how I feel. I think the board's well aware of how I feel on that, and but I do believe that with TRC, with our Indigenous population attending these schools since the 40s, even a connection to Central going back to 1905, And also with just Indigenous kids struggling in the system. But we've got a lot of kids struggling in the system, like when our data shows us that Indigenous kids are topping non-Indigenous kids, that's great, but it's not great because we've got a lot of work to do. And I wish we could focus more on that than this, but this is a reality that we have to face. And I know we're gonna go around a few more times and I'll chew on some more thoughts. Thanks.
Go to Leah and then to Everett and then myself.
Just the heart in this room is evident, and the 16 meetings before evident, and all of the correspondence evident. I'm the kid out of a village called Doolin. We had to close our school 20 years ago, so I know what that feels like. And Princeton too. I also lived in Princeton through a school closure, so I know how it impacts our kids and our families and our teachers. And I feel like this is a bit of a story, and data and facts are telling a bit of a story. And I had some questions, that got answered, thankfully, through a lot of great questions from public and really good questions from and thoughtful considerations from staff. I can't ignore that Central was flooded. I can't ignore that what I heard was it has a lot of damage to it currently, and that the cost of repair is going to exceed what we are getting from current government. I can't ignore that. That is a fact, and it's telling me a story. I also have not had much time to absorb our most recent letter from Coldwater that supports scenario. It seems like it supports another scenario. So I haven't had time to absorb that. I really, it matters to me. John speaks about it. It matters to me that the story of the past has looked really painful for our Indigenous communities. And so I have to let that sit. And so I know we'll go around a little bit, but for me, everything's about relationships. And so not closing a school is not an option because people told us that they needed those teachers and EAs, that was the most important, and counselors was the most important thing. So I know that that's a really big part. And listen, Passion is in the room, Justin, Jamie, Dave, John, Ev, Chair Swan, myself, and your staff. We are people of your community, and it is not lost on us the painful time that this has been for you guys. So I'll just let Ev go now.
Yeah, so hard times, right? So first of all, I want to thank my fellow trustees and of course the senior staff and the community, right, for all the engagements that we had and stuff, and questions asked, questions answered. It weighs heavy on all of us, right? So, but it does make me think about even what's going on in the world today, right? And how like what's going on in the Middle East impacts like fuel prices here, like overnight, and how like Canada and the American relationship, and even provincially, right down to our municipalities, right? For those of us who grew up in the Nicola Valley, we've never seen empty lumber yards, closed sawmills, right? So this is all trickled down to where we sit now, right? So, um, good conversations. One of the things about myself is, I've always viewed my role as a school trustee as supporting students and families and communities with integrity, right? Um, I have a dedication to students with diverse learnings, and to the strength of our local community guides most of my decisions. A thing to know about myself is I'm actually a rural school trustee, right? And that's a position I hold dearly, right? So, um, with that said, I know we're going to go around a little bit more here. So, like to hear from our chair, Swan. So I'll pass it on to you, Gordon.
Thanks, Everett. Yeah, no. I'll be in the 30 years as a trustee. This is one of the harder decisions we've had to make. And when I think back to when we closed CMS, and we moved the 7s back to the elementary schools and moved the 8s over to MSS. The community was pretty well together on that it seemed to be the right decision. That was the start of our population decline. But it was a fairly easy decision to make. This one is a lot harder for us and for the community. We had an application into the ministry for a childcare facility similar to Princeton. I thought, well, we don't necessarily have to put that into Kengard. If we get the 10.3 million for that, that could go into Central, could look like they have in Revelstoke, have both together, solve some of our immediate needs for rehab in that school. The ministry let us know late last week that they had rejected our proposal. So that came off the table. We don't know when or if that will come back. We're also seeing on our numbers in our last 2 years, our decline is increasing at an increasing rate. So this year coming up, we're looking at another $800,000 we're going to have to find. The last 2 years was another $1 million, which is hard to swallow. We talked with the Ministry of Infrastructure. I've had a conversation with them and with the Minister of Education, and they basically said there is no more money. We've got the reports that just came in, I think today, that basically said the budget is status quo, so not really seeing an increase in education. And that's a concern for us as well, because we know we need those counseling positions. The province during negotiations left that at 1 counselor per 693 students. It's 1 to 250 in Alberta. If I look at that number, that would be like MSS having 1 counselor, you would have a third of a counselor at PSS. Our kids deserve better than that. And so picking an option that we would actually be reducing some of those positions. We've heard that the literacy and numeracy teachers that are helping there, that's making a difference ongoing. And yet those are the only positions under the collective agreement. Those would be the first that we would have to cut. So that's really hard to take. And in talking with other board chairs, our nominal capacity, which is the bums and seats, Minister of Infrastructure has been pretty blunt on that. If you're not above 90%, don't come looking for money. And we're under 70% on nominal capacity. So the Minister of Education, I think the comment she used last week was, you need to sharpen your pencils. And I felt like saying with that, we've already sharpened our pencils. We've been doing all that. You haven't invested in our properties in 10, 15 years. And we know from Daryl, that's 9.5 million in deferred maintenance, 230 across the province. So we know other districts are in that same area. We know we've got 2.3 million at Central. We know eventually in the next 2 years, there's going to be about a $1.2 million likelihood, Daryl, I'm guessing, water project we need to do there, because those pipes are pitted and it's simply going to fail. At the same time, we know at Collettville, we've got $1.1 million of deferred maintenance. We know we got over $500,000 at Bench, almost 700,000 at Diamondville. Our newest school, which is Nicola Cantford, it's got $630,000 worth of deferred maintenance because the funding hasn't kept up. As we mentioned, we put in for $4 million this year just to get to our basic minimum, and we got $1 million. So we know that number is going to grow. We also know if we don't see industry coming to town 4 years from now, we're going to be talking about the number of kids through attrition is going to equal another school. And I'm not sure how we're going to manage that right now. But I look at that number, if industry isn't coming in and people are having less children, we're talking about that number is the equivalent of one of our schools again. And so getting a handle on it now to begin with, I think is a place we have to start. And so I know the mayor also asked us to delay, and my response to the mayor was when he said there might be 150 kids coming. I said, well, if you want to cover the difference, then we can delay. And so far, the city has not come back to us and said, we'll make up the difference through our budget if there's a shortfall. We still have a requirement under provincial law to balance our budget. So at the end of the day, as a board, we're going to have to balance that budget. So there is no easy decision for me on the 4 options there. We've always looked at what is in the best interest of students. And I think on this one, we're looking at the best interest and the least harm. We know there's going to be harm. What can we do to lessen that? And I think we're looking at the best of 4 bad decisions. But we're going to have to pick one of them. So and I think I'm going to stop there because it's and again, though, thanks to the community, because to remember, one of our original ones was, well, we could just split Central into 3 other schools. And the parents all quickly came back and said, don't even think that. So that one came off the table. I think this is where you talked about that option 4 coming up, that which came out of those meetings. So grateful for those ones in the fall. And it's going to fly around again if there's other comments.
Since to borrow a school analogy, I misunderstood the assignment on the first round. I'll kind of give my background as to where my decision making is coming from. Again, it's hard to follow on the heels of all of the really good comments the rest of trustees have made, and the information from the district staff has been incredibly informative and eloquent. And I really appreciate everybody's input on this, including those of the community, because as everybody has said, this is a very difficult decision to make. It's not one that I think any of us are enjoying. And none of these are good choices. We're really just trying to pick the least worst at this point, which decision, as Chair Swan said, is going to do the least harm. And in looking at that, you know, I'm looking at how are we going to mitigate a loss of resources versus a building for as long as possible. You know, for me, losing people, regardless of whether they're district staff, custodians, EAs, counselors, that to me isn't on the table, because those are real people with real jobs and careers and families of their own and mortgages to pay. To me, that's not a system I'm willing to look at versus a building. Which is not to imply that the buildings don't have value, but there are still people to consider as well. I'm also looking at how we can reduce the upheaval for kids. How are we preventing another school closure for as long as possible? Because there are considerations to be made there. We don't want to put anyone, any trustees on the next board, the community, the kids. We don't want to do this for as long as possible. And then finally, it's those financial considerations. As John said, we do have that fiduciary responsibility to the community, to everybody here, to make sure that we're using the funds that we do have in the most responsible way that we can. So that's basically it for me. Thank you.
I don't think I have anything else to add.
Me, yeah, I think well said, Jamie. Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say.
John, yourself?
Just going through my own mind right now is thinking of like where we're gonna be in 10 years, 20 years as a school. I think Courtney alluded to, we haven't hit rock bottom yet on student numbers. You know, there are other communities that went right down so low in student numbers and they start coming back. And I don't know if Merritt's there yet, right? If we see 224 in the next, 5 years, that's all of Central School right now, right? So chances are we are going to be doing this again in a year or two, no matter what. And because we have schools that have 40%, 50%, 55%, it's just kind of a reality. We have too many schools for the number of students we have. So, and with our communities, they're all bused to either Nicola Canford, MSS, or Central. And that's just reality, the way the busing works. And again, I will really look closely at those ECRs and the letters from the communities. Thanks.
John, what is the base of?
A band council resolution.
Thank you.
That was the Coldwater one, the
Yeah.
where with the whereas.
This wasn't.
No, that was Upper Nicoll.
Upper Nicoll,
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And Coldwater turned theirs into a letter. The other one too, if you recall, during the flood, we actually approached the ministry and said, how about we build a new school that combines Central and Diamondvale together? Because we looked at our numbers and build a school for the 21st century, right size it, raise it up to at least the height of the bridge. So that meant it would be coming up about 3 meters. 6 to get above the crest of the road there. And that was also turned down back then when we had I think they looked at that, we had $21 million coming in for rehab work. The amount of dollars at the time, I think was 6 to 8 into Central, if I remember right. And the ministry went, and that would cost another $20 million. And they basically said, we'll kick the can down the road 5 years. If you take when the flood was till now, it's 5 years, the can got kicked down the road. And that, again, was a solution we looked at 5 years ago when we had the flood to say, hey, this would be the right decision to make. And we weren't successful in that either. We even had, at the time, the government wanted us to take out a $28 million loan to pay for the rehabilitation of our schools. So that was a private conversation I had with the minister on the phone that got us to the point where they were going to provide a grant in dollars, because there was no way, or so it's $21 million, but taking out a $21 million loan on a $28 million operating budget, there is no way. So at that time, Jackie Taggart was our education critic and our MLA. So I think the minister agreed that she'd rather settle it with the district than have it brought up in the House. But that's another piece where we tried to navigate, because that would have killed us financially too, to have that a $21 million operating loan.
You didn't get Leo or.
Leah and Everett.
Am I right to understand that the dike has not been rebuilt by Central? So if we had a weather event, Central is still as vulnerable as it's ever been?
Only a small portion has been built. There's still many parts of that like that has to be done.
How long will that take? Oh, sorry.
I think it's a 7 or 8 year project. If the city can get the money from other levels of government, because the city also can't afford the cost of that. Everett.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add at this time, Gordon.
Anything else from anyone? And if not, then I will go ahead.
Just the plan around staff and students, like whatever change we make, just the commitment from the board, how to support not just the logistics piece. I understand you guys have plans for that, but that piece, I can't unhear harm. I can't unhear that. So how are we going to support that transition for families and staff and students? I was just hopeful for a bit of insight there and maybe a reassurance.
So Misty and I have actually been working with our counselors, in the event that a school closes. So one of it is, what we learned after Tumbler Ridge, people appreciate resources for difficult time and harm. So putting together, what does it look like from the home perspective, but also from a school-based perspective. I've reached out to other superintendents who've had to close schools and find out, like, what did that process look like for them? We've heard from staff that went through the CMS closure. So part of it is, on those last days, making sure that you're a presence there with them. Making sure that there's artifacts that come from whatever school goes into the new building. But also You know, rather than focusing on the negative pieces, how do you make it a positive experience? So, you know, we do a good job already with intramural sports between our schools. You know, they often are going to others to visit. You know, how on a grade by grade basis do we look at, you know, what are activities that we can do to start forging some of those bonds before we go? You know, family barbecues, looking at an open house for kids with inclusive needs, starting the transition as soon as we know. You know, we follow a similar protocol with MSS, you know, making sure they're familiar with the building, where they're gonna go. Those are, you know, the pieces just fleshed out a little bit. So once we know what the decision is, then we can work with our admin and our teachers to also support our kids through the transition.
In Tulameen, we had like this big community, it felt like a reunion, like grandmas and grandpas were there. So I just as an idea, you know, we've been through these places and spaces. And my nieces and nephews and my aunties and uncles and cousins, like we've been through this. And it was the adults really, their attitude and their hopefulness and their way forward that really led kids are pretty resilient is actually my take on all of this. And when I heard together, moving schools together, so the school is moving is how I heard that. Like it's not a closing of relationships or teachers or students, it's just a shift, a move.
Or relocation. So that was one of the things that we
The
heard.
language matters.
Yeah, it's one of the things we heard over and over again, because originally, like Justin alluded to, we had the option where Central, you know, split into 3 other schools. What we've heard from the kids is being together is the most important, that they're really connected to the staff in their buildings. So moving it as close as we can as a unit from one place to another would be the priority to help make that transition easier. When you already have those relationships, you know, Dr. Jody Carrington talks about that we're made to do hard things. We've been through a lot of hard things in Merritt and Princeton. You know, it was one hit after another: COVID, fires, floods. People stepped up. Credit to our surrounding school districts. They also stepped up to help us in our time of need. But what really helped get people through that is they were a team and they were united. I see it's kind of like when you're a family and you pick up and move. It's really hard when you move by yourself and you have no support system around you. When you're able to move with your family, even though it's hard and there's new things that you have to learn and become accommodated to, you have that built-in support system and those pre-existing relationships that I think really matter a lot. So.
Are there any other thoughts? If not, then I'll entertain a motion. Did I see your hand move, Everett? Or-
I'll put a motion forward that,
Yeah, it's got one.
oh, I'm sorry.
we lost
it.
Right.
Everett, we just lost him. There's that. Everett,
Sorry, I was gonna put a motion forward. Are we there?
Yeah,
So I'll put a motion forward that we look at scenario 4. Colville closes, the French immersion program moves to Central, and we make a dual track.
I would need a seconder to continue. Seconded by trustee Jepson. Is there any further discussion or amendments to that motion? John?
I think there would be an opportunity to have a language-based school. If you had a dual track, Indigenous language, French immersion, land-based, near the water. I mean, even though the water took us out almost, but I think it would create some energy around, that we would have an elementary language school. And I believe I heard that from a parent, so. I would support that.
It's not lost on me that this option was brought forward by the community. That's important, to me, yeah, I just, think this one makes the most sense. In my opinion, for the community, from what we've heard from all of our, consultations and from, letters from the bands, on the table, this one makes the most sense and feels like the right move for the community. It doesn't come without its risks, financially, blood. But I think there are things we can overcome because, that school is important and I think that Leo was saying, kids are resilient and hopefully we can get to a place, not tonight, not tomorrow, maybe not in a couple of weeks. It's gonna take some time to digest, but I'm hopeful that as a community, we can get to a point with whatever decision we choose that we can, start to get excited about a path forward and find a way for us to all contribute towards, forward progress. I think Everett has his hand up.
Jamie and then Everett.
I definitely hear the community angle and I absolutely respect that and it's not wrong. My concern with this particular move is it really doesn't address the elephant in the room of the significantly older infrastructure of Central, and its likelihood of catastrophic damage is so high. And let's take the pipes, for instance, that you've talked about. If those blow, not only do we have, $1 million+ worth of damage to deal with, but we're also having to upheave those kids again, move them to other schools on a temporary basis. It feels like it's got potential for so much more cost than other options, and I'm hesitant on that one. But I do also understand that community point and I do value that as well.
Everett.
Yeah, for me, the community piece, right? It's the history, like it's central school in our community for a reason, right? It's been a gathering place for students and families for generations. Really linked to the Indigenous aspect as well. I hear about the catastrophic pipe failure, but whether we have students in that school or not, we still own that school. There will be a liability from us to take care of that, right? So I also think of like the infrastructure around the school, the work that the city has done to make that school easy to walk to, right? How the buses can get in and out of there. They've got a locked in system. When I start thinking about like some of the challenges of our students, say you close Central and you're sending students, all our students to Collettville, those roadways, those ditches, having to cross a river a couple times a day across the bridges. I just feel overall safety wise, there is risk with old infrastructure and piping and a cost, but at the same time, I think overall it's a safer choice. Even reminds me of when, is maybe Colville wasn't, the school itself wasn't touched by water, but generally that whole Colville community was wiped out, right? And some of it still hasn't been put back together.
Others. I think when I look at where John's going with Indigenous language school, the other piece in French, in looking at that, we're going to go down that road, also be thinking about how can we raise those funds corporately to do it ourselves, because we're not going to get help from the ministry. But that's not that far a stretch when you look at hospitals and post-secondaries. You're able to do that. So I think that has to be something on our minds too, that if we're going there, and I think at the central meeting, one of the parents brought up fundraising, but I'm talking about $10 million worth of fundraising. Because I think eventually you're going to need to do some replacement there, but back to you, John.
I know that, we heard some people in the community say they'd love to see some kind of land language school. And, historically, the both Ntlaka'pamux and Syilx languages have, French words in them, like, LaSalle, Le Capo, Le Beur. Those are all in there, because the first Europeans that the locals, traded with were French, right? And I think there could be some real magical things happening in something like that.
I can't help ignore that community is really speaking, and I can't unhear the late letter that was submitted around truth and reconciliation, and how we have to speak up for people who maybe aren't here today. So I also have to give over deep respect to the trustees and the families who are here every day in this community. So,
Thank you. We as parents are happy.
and
So,
thank you. Yeah, so I suppose, you know, when you say magic and language and you talk about advocacy for Indigenous kids and parents, now you speak my language. Well, this gets really, really tough. So I mean, I want to thank the late the late entry of the letter. So yeah, I guess I have to say, I thought I knew, and now I don't, but I will, I promise.
Back to Jamie.
Keeping in mind the other letter asked for something different, so there's both sides, like there are Indigenous groups asking for both, just to the devil's advocate that.
You know, I work with the most vulnerable kids on the planet for 20 years. And access and community, they need to see their downtown core every day. Because it takes a village to raise a kid, especially with a kid who doesn't have mom and dad who are fully present at home. And so now it comes into, what would I want for my kid? Which I always had that brain trying to go down here. And I was thinking, you know, downtown has a vitality to it when a school's there. So yeah, I have to listen a little. And I feel like, you know, I had to get out of my own way and really hear what Merit is saying.
Call the question. Please.
Questions? Everyone in favor of question being called? Opposed to question being called? Carried. So question is called on option 4, close Collettville Elementary French immersion program moves to Merit Central Elementary as a dual track school. All those in favor? Put your hands. Opposed? I think the motion carries. I'm now going to give you a bylaw that you're going to need to do. So just bear with me on this. So the motion is, be it resolved that the Board of Education of School District 58, in accordance with Section 73 of the School Act, approve the permanent closure of Collettville Elementary School, facility number 05831009, located at 615 Lindley Creek Road, Merritt, BC, on June 30th, 2026. So that's the closure date, by giving school closure bylaw 202601-Collettville Elementary School first reading this 11th day of March 2026. So I'm going to mover and a seconder because it has to be that specific bylaw motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Trustee Ward, seconded by Kent Laidlaw. Anyone opposed? Okay, we're gonna have to do this again for second reading. So motion, be it resolved that the Board of Education of School District 58, in accordance with Section 73 of the School Act, approve the permanent closure of Collettville Elementary School, facility number 05831009, located at 615 Lindley Creek, Merritt, BC on June 30th, 2026 by giving school closure bylaw 2026-1 Collettville Elementary School second reading this 11th day of March 2026. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hoisington, seconded by Rainier. Any discussion on that? Before we get to third reading, I need a motion to go to third reading, and this one has to be unanimous or it moves to April. So be it resolved that in accordance with section 68(4) of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District 73 had to take out the 67.
You said,
50.
Sorry, that's the cut and paste.
It's a cut and paste, 58. School District 58 unanimously agrees to give all three readings of School District Bylaw 2026-01 Collettville Elementary School at this meeting. So I need that to be moved.
So moved.
Seconder, do I have unanimous consent to move to third and final reading?
Looks like.
Good. No, I'm just making sure. Got the right section and district. Yeah. Don't want to be closing one of their schools. Oh, man. Yeah, so so this is third and final reading. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of School District number 58, in accordance with section 73 of the School Act, approve the permanent closure of Collettville Elementary School facility number 05831-009, located at 615 Lindley Creek Road, Merritt, BC on June 30th, 2026, by giving school closure bylaw 2026-01 Collettville Elementary School third and final reading and adopting this bylaw this 11th day of March 2026. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. So you now have your administrative procedures to move on. The group, if you want to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you're certainly welcome to. If not, we can take a 5-minute recess. Then with you. Thank you for attending tonight. Okay, so we are going to reading many procedures are next. First one is compression or weighted vests and blankets.
So Adrienne put this admin procedure together. There is liability around using compression or weighted vests without the proper oversight. So she's developed a protocol. So this one is just information for you, and the protocol is attached as well. From a liability point of view, it's a good thing to have in place, and we'll continue to add to our admin procedures as we move forward.
That's where the procedures number 1 weighted.
And then you also have an admin procedure regarding parent advisory councils in front of you.
So, you know what, I appreciate our engagement of our parents. I actually had 2 reach out to me and asked if it could be more gender neutral language. So we have he, she, his, her. So I'll make that change, and then this one is ready to go up on our website.
Perfect.
I think that's, yeah, go ahead and make that change. That would be consistent with previous policies that we've done, right? So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't think we need to vote on that. It just
Yeah,
makes sense.
and just so you know, we had no policies for second or third reading tonight. So with that, we will move to the PAC reports and we'll start with Everett. Unless you want to go after Lee, I can do that too.
Yeah, no, but I haven't pulled mine up yet. Maybe just let me go before Leah.
Okay,
Vermillion, should I start?
you can start.
Oh, no,
Or did he get his wish?
go.
Do you like to end on you?
It's not, I don't.
Energy.
Okay, Jamie.
Oh my God, again. All right. Okay, so I mean, the big news for PSS right now is that the group of kids going to Spain and Portugal leave on Wednesday. So they're all very, very excited. It looks like an incredible trip. It's been, almost 2 years in the making. They've got some incredible teachers who have organized this, who have met with kids on a regular basis to make sure they're all prepared. They've met with parents to make sure we're all prepared, because I'm not prepared yet, but we'll get there. And I'm hoping that, maybe we can get some of the kids from PSS to do a presentation when they get back.
Yeah.
because it would be fun for them to be able to do that. The PAC is also looking into potentially supporting some student projects, such as like their one group wants to do like a beautification of the PSS courtyard, which would be really great for everybody. I know the PAC is looking into what the gaming grant rules are to make sure that we're not giving them any money that they're not allowed or entitled to take, because the PAC really does want to, encourage these kids who are enthusiastic about these projects. They're also looking at getting Frisbee Rob to maybe come do some more presentations in Princeton. He's been there before and the kids really loved him. So one of the PAC members actually knows him. So she's having some conversations to do that. They're also looking at having one of our RCMP members, I think it's Constable Farrow, that's going to come out and do a presentation on sexual exploitation, drugs, alcohol, drinking, driving, that type of thing. So that's going to be really good for the kids to have a member of the community come and speak to them about those issues. The Gorman Mill is also supporting the woodworking classes at PSS and MSS, and they're providing some lumber to the schools for woodworking projects. So just big shout out to them for helping out the schools in that way. We also did talk quite a bit about lockdown procedures and mental health supports following the Tumbler Ridge incident. There's been, some parents have been concerns about, like we spoke to is, the procedures and that sort of thing that the schools have. So we were able to have some good discussion about that. And the next meeting is on April 20th at 5 p.m.
You mind if I go next so I can head out?
Oh,
We're gonna
right.
drive.
Yeah.
Mine's really short. So, Sky's always, they can't really fundraise. They get the grants from sports or lotto. And they support kids in every which way they can, and they do a fabulous job and commendable. At Hollyville, our last meeting, every time I do a trustee report, it's been on the school closure. Of course, and that PAC is like I said before, they're a fundraising machine.
Mhm.
And they really do a lot of great things for students in their school. But they've held off doing anything until this vote happened. And there'll probably be a lot of operational things we'll have to do to support what a new school PAC would look like, and how do you assure like a welcoming environment for a dual track school. So, but they are very, very, very committed to supporting kids, and that's one of the great things that I saw at that school. Besides their principal and their teachers, support staff are wonderful too. So, and I got to participate in the French district meeting.
Well, the French advisory.
Yeah, French advisory.
Yeah.
Again, a wonderful group. They always thinking about ways to make the French language program at transition from the elementary school to the high school very positive, and to see more a breadth of more students transitioning all the way through to graduation. They're quite pleased this year. I think they have 14 or 15 kids at kindergarten, right, in French immersion, and they're hoping that there's 14 to 15 that graduate in, I guess, 13 years, right? So, yeah, but good groups. Everyone else, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna listen to your reports. I'll catch you next meeting.
Safe trip.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of snow. I worry about you guys too, going back to Princeton.
Take it nice and slow.
You don't.
No,
Lower mainland
please,
tonight?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small enough.
I've got track to see up if you want to get in there.
He's going.
We're going.
I will make it down.
I just need you to keep the roads open tomorrow morning to Kelowna there.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah.
Mark.
Drive safe, Johnny.
Well,
Be safe,
hopefully
cool
it's not.
shop, say hi
hopefully
to
it's
your
not
wife.
snow.
Yes,
Okay, enjoy the game.
see you, Jim. See you.
We're somewhere around the table. Are you ready now, Everett?
Yeah, I can go. So Nicola Canford's pack met in on February 18th. Lots of good stuff going on at Nicola Canford. Primary skating, ice fishing, snowshoeing, salmon hatching, winter celebration, battle bots. So yeah, lots coming out of Bert for his report. Roots of Empathy were there. Lots of good stuff. Parenting in the online world. Next session is February 19th. So that's happened already. But yeah, lots of good stuff. Some of the new stuff that had come up is they ended up having to postpone their ski trip, but they ended up getting that completed like on the February 26th. So that's great. They're talking about getting together for another field trip and outing before the end of the year. I heard this, Jamie mentioned this too, is lots of talk about Tumbler Ridge and a heartfelt what we for the community, and what are our protocols as a district, and Nicola Canford has the 2 drills a year, so more to come there. Yeah, and that was about it. They're planning on meeting again, but not until April 8th, I believe. They were just with a short month there, they were a little short on attendees, so that was the plan.
Who's next?
I can go. Central Elementary, we met last night. They've also got a lot going on in their school. They wrapped up their basketball seasons and now it's into handball. Their last meeting, I think I listed all their clubs. All their clubs are still going strong. They've got a retirement celebration for one of the staff members that's retiring this week that they're excited and also sad to see go. And I think they have a new language teacher. Is that right, Courtney? At Central?
At Central, yeah, they had their prep teacher.
Okay,
The first one resigned and then we've hired since.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're excited about that in addition to their staff. A little bit of turnover with another staff member who's filling in for a mat leave that's gonna happen after spring break, so some mixed feelings from kids that they've been with the teacher all year, now they gotta go change, so I think they're excited, but also sad to see the little one go, although I don't think she's gonna be gone altogether, she'll stick around for a little bit in other roles. They also decided to postpone their lockdown procedure protocol for now. They'll probably do one before the end of the year, but just decided to give some more time to heal a little bit for those kids. And they had a fundraiser tonight at their school. It was a movie night for the grade 7 Eagle Bay trip that they're fundraising for. They're hopeful that they can get some money towards that trip so that kids can get signed up. And but again, their pack only had only has two positions, no president is, has filled the position of president there, so maybe, maybe there's an opportunity for their pack to grow stronger in the future. Diamondville, we met, on the 17th of February. Same thing with the sports, they were, excited about basketball and that ended, and now they're doing handball. Not a whole lot else from the pack itself to update. They had some fundraising ideas and some spirit days that they had planned out. Went through some important dates for the rest of the year, but overall, a quiet meeting. We're meeting again next week.
Next week, spring break?
No, that doesn't make sense, does it?
I'm sorry.
I thought it was March 17th. I think maybe we,
Maybe they need an email from their trustee that says, you guys are on spring.
that maybe is April 17th in my mind, and we're skipping 1 month. Maybe I had 17th in my mind, but. And Central, we are meeting on the 14th of April, so,
You don't need a thought from Daryl for the 17th.
yeah, no, well, unless we meet in the parking lot. It's nice enough out. That's it for me.
The bench, both their basketball teams placed third in the district. So that was good, and thanks to Mr. Cleveley and one of the parents, Bethany Ryan, for coaching those teams. That was good to see. The Mrs. Vanderbrink's class, they do walking field trips, and the one they did in February was down to Nicola Meadows. And so they delivered Valentine's cards to all the seniors residents there. And so that was really neat, and quite a lot of emotion from the adults down there, because I think being in the facility there, they sometimes feel like they're forgotten. And then the cherry on top down there was one of the students, Joshua, who saw the piano there, went over and played for them. So, and then after that, they walked over to watch the cinch practice, and then had a swim at the pool. So, but really neat to see them interacting with the seniors there. MSS last night, they passed money for the permanent art collection again, which it's got to have been going on at least 20 years, I think. So there'll be 2 more pieces that will be, so they have students put in 2-dimensional art, it's judged, it's juried, and then 2 pieces are selected to be added to the permanent collection. So great to see that happening as well. I've had a few conversations with Chad Anderson, who is the chair of peace around Tumbler Ridge, and some of the things to expect based on our experience 18 years ago. So there's now going to be a coroner's inquest. There's probably going to be the child advocate. And so just letting them know, because as those happened, our experience here was, wounds opened up again. And so, because there will be that tendency to look for, although a coroner's inquest doesn't look for blame, it looks for blame. So just letting them know that as part of their journey, that's something that we certainly experienced here, and to be thinking about how that's going to happen with staff, because as those things happen, emotions are going to come up. I'm sure if you recall, there was one, he was a science teacher there, but when they went into lockdown, his son, which was in his class, was out at the washroom. Do you think locking your child out to save the rest? So, and that brought back things from Diamondville, when I thought, oh, I'm over all this, but just going through with him, these are the things that are going to hit your staff. And so it was good to have that conversation with him, just so they knew, oh, it's, and I think John didn't mention, but MVIT's trailers up there right now, they're
And
they're-
instructor.
yeah, so that they can have their shop classes. So it's good to see that up there as well, coming from our community. And provincial council update.
Hey, how about my report?
You're recording? Okay,
Which would you like? There's the land.
okay, I'll let Leah go first, and then you've got a topper, okay?
I have to be really honest, tonight was so heavy, I can't help. I can't, it's such a, there are celebratory things, and our superintendent pointed out some celebratory things in here, but it is not lost on me how much emotion went into this evening by our staff. in this beautiful community of Merritt, and that these decisions matter. So I was going to temper my.
Great.
And it is, the families of Vermilion Forks that absolutely shine. It's these incredible parents and caregivers that were chaperones to Apex skiing and snowboarding. It is their continued heart around fundraising. God, they're doing photo fundraisers and flower fundraisers and bake sales, and the heart at Vermilion Forks is second to none. And I'm just like, hard days like today, it makes you remember that these incredible moms and dads and caregivers and aunties and uncles and teachers and EAs, everyone, school communities really matter. This beautiful Vermilion Forks has been through a lot in the last few years, and they are finally in a place where they have such incredible leadership, wonderful teachers, good students. I think they're coming around. I think it's a good place to be. They will meet again. They're gonna have a March break, a spring break. They will meet again in April. They have an amazing literacy race that they're gonna do. It's their 12th annual. In fact, our little group, the Princeton Leaders for Literacy, hosts it. So I had a 19-year-old come into our Matrix program today, and we talked about how volunteering is you're gonna volunteer within the paradigms of this amazing literacy race. And she said, that was the only thing I remember from elementary school, was running around Princeton in this amazing literacy race. So there are some really good things happening at that school in connection with community. And it made me think about our decision tonight around keeping schools visible in community, and the village to raise these little sometimes matters. And I think, yeah, tonight was hard. And when we celebrate these amazing school communities, it takes a little bit of the sting out of hard decisions. So yeah, I had to temper it.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. Courtney and Miss Larson sure took a lot of time. 50 pages of them. But the pack, or at the school, they're having the guided reading, which going with our literacy is really important. They're also trying to setting up an early reader book club, which I think is really cool. They'll read the same book, which I think is really, kind of neat. The posse again has been helping out a lot with skating and in the classrooms doing some, so big shout out to them. They raised some money from the community again. They're going to send out some cards, possibly some media for those businesses. In that the plethora of pictures, there's one of Paul Sikora and the kids. He's a local naturalist, and he brought in the skeletons and animals and furs and all stuff. And they said it was really cool because the kids could touch them and hold them, and they said they were so gentle with them. So I thought that was really cool. So those little kids, I'd be throwing it around. They're going to have a used book fair for Earth Day, which I think is really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the PAC is also supporting teachers, classrooms, the library, and possibly some gym equipment. So pretty cool. They're very powerful. And that's it.
Now I think it's Jamie and the provincial council update.
All right. So I got to attend provincial council recently. A lot of the stuff they talked about at our last branch meeting, but for a nice summary here, they talked about sort of the continued advocacy to the ministry for unrestricted funding. Basically focusing on rising cost of precedent inflation. Part of this is just so you could choose how you wanted to use those funds, and they weren't locked into a specific program or item. We talked about the upcoming AGM. An independent parliamentarian will attend on Saturday. They're going to have pro and con mics that will be alternated between, so that it's not going to be, hopefully it will be a little more organized and coordinated than the last time. For the first time, they're going to tile the doors. So for anyone who doesn't know what that means that they're going to essentially seal the doors anytime there's a vote coming. So if you want to vote, be in the room type of thing. They're also going to have readers that will move and second the motions just to speed up the process rather than asking the entire room, okay, everybody click on, you know, that type of thing. They're hoping again to do it electronically. We'll see how well that works. And they're also going to work on improving accessibility for the mics, so that they're easier to use, for everybody. BCSTA is also reviewing their use of specific social media platforms. So the platform formerly known as Twitter, has a lot of problematic media on it. A lot of it victimizes kids. So they're saying be really aware that if you're using social media as a board, as a district, to be aware of what else is on that, that system that you're using. BCSTA essentially sticks to LinkedIn as its platform. They're promoting and advocating for democratically elected local school boards in the face of Ontario's push to remove school boards. In Ontario, they are working to have those run essentially by the ministry, which takes a lot of power out of a board to advocate to the ministry for the things that it needs. So they talked about that. However, Minister Bear has said to them that they don't really have any interest in moving in that direction in BC, which is good news.
Should codify that in legislation. Right to exist.
Yeah, and then we just talked budget and that was about that.
I just like to thank you for taking over that for me and also Gordon now, the ORC.
On his birthday.
I know, that was a good present. What else do you want to do? And also Gordon, June 16th, they come out with it and I can't make that next.
Well, we're
Happy birthday.
You're just the gift that keeps
That's
giving.
right, there you go.
So that will be basically all of Eastern Canada. Quebec only has the regular board, and that's only because that's a charter rights challenge. Doesn't have the Nova Scotia School Council. I think PEI was just voting to put school boards back in for their next round of elections, because it wasn't working so well. And the Quebec, they referred to the school districts as a pebble in their shoe and had to be done away with. The comment we had from them, so it's,
It does seem like that is not on the table as far as BC is concerned, which is good.
well, it would be nice if they codified our existence rather than the pleasure of the minister. Anyways, thank you for attending that. The next item you have, just a reminder too, we have 3 policies that we will be bringing forward and passing by the end of June, which BCSTA and the ministry have asked us to have prior to the next school board elections. That's the role of the superintendent, role of the assistant superintendent, and role of the secretary treasurer. So those will be coming up to get those done prior to, and I believe they sent us a template. Somewhat. Yeah, so we'll have those coming up for April and May so that we can have those passed by June prior to the fall elections. You have, which we already discussed, just in your package, the delay school closure petition. That is there as well. And we did discuss that in part with the school closure motion.
Do we need to like recognize on the minutes that we did receive it and discuss it?
Yeah, well, it is in the minutes, and Courtney will be Mark is going to be responding to it, and his response will basically be the motion that was passed tonight. Anyone online in the public question period?
That's not a question, there was a statement,
Okay,
like, it's a nice one. They said, thank you for recognizing the students who belong to a Coldwater Indian band. As an advocate for the students, I'm happy to the trustees who recognize truth and reconciliation.
now we'll move to public question period within the room, and I see we have public.
I just want to thank you guys for decision you thought was the best and you choose for us. And I would like to acknowledge that we are on the land from all the 5 bands, and I'm kind of sad that the representative was not able to be, but I would like to acknowledge that some of us, we are the colonizers who came here, and we are grateful to the indigenous community to share their land with us. And Kupsham, and I was touched by some of the comments you guys shared today for some of you, and I agree this decision was very difficult. I had some questions from moms, they had to go because it was difficult for them. And for me, now I don't have to drive my son anymore to school, he's just gonna walk, actually, more convenient, but I wanted to respect the feelings and the question. I have 3 questions from 3 moms, if I could have your approval.
As long as it's
Well,
better.
Wait, yeah.
Questions, not statements.
Yes, thank you. One of the mom asked me to ask, when did the council said that they will, that they are, no, that they, what did she say? Oh, when did the council said that they are approving the closure of the school? Were they for it, or they said, no, we don't want the school to be closed? She asked for the clarification.
So the board passed option number 4, which is, and the bylaw that was passed is the closure of Collettville Elementary School. And with that, Collettville Elementary School becomes dual track at Central. That was passed tonight.
Oh, yeah, no, that's perfect. No, oh, sorry, maybe my question was not rightly asked. One mom who was here today heard some comment from some people here who said that the school district was supported by the council and some other organization in town to close the school. She said, yes, thank you. When did the city council
So the
said
mayor has
that they want to
asked-
close?
The mayor, well, no, the mayor asked for a delay, which is what we said tonight. And it asked several times for that, and our response to them was, if you can fund the difference in the number of students, which we had not heard back from the city on, because that was we were required to have a balanced budget. So the mayor, I think you've seen him in the paper a few times and on CFJC TV and on CBC, believing that there's going to be some economic activity, which we haven't seen yet. So no, the city did not say y'all close the school. They were saying delay for, I think it was.
Their position was to delay. They didn't want to close any of the schools.
And they had mentioned that there might be 150 kids showing up, then it was maybe 100 kids, then it was something else. Next question.
Thank you. And the second question from another mom was, how much School District 58 got money after the flood to renovate from the government? They just wanted to know the number. What did the...
Yeah, look at Daryl, but I'm thinking it was about 21 million.
It was right around the $21 million mark to renovate all the schools after the flood.
And the
So that's the board office,
MSS.
MSS, Central, and Diamondville.
And following that good answer, is any way that the parents can see, like, where that was located and how much? Like, you know what I mean? Like not auditing, but be like, oh, okay, 2 million went here, 1 million went there. Oh, good.
Like
Like,
have a breakdown by school, because I had to, everything I had approved, I think Daryl, then you had to send to some group in Victoria, who then had to approve it to make sure there wasn't anything in there that wasn't flood related, if I remember right.
Yeah, right, could find that.
Yeah, because that's like
Should have all those.
4
numbers.
years ago, so, but yeah, we can find that, because we know about how much we spent on each, and we had to fight to get money for the district office, because they said we don't fund district offices, so that was another, I refer to it as my come to Jesus moment with the minister.
And if I can qualify that, so what that would be is us restoring it to back to what it was before the flood, so it wasn't any bells and whistles or anything.
thank you so much. And one more following question was, did the insurance for all the schools paid back anything to the schools to renovate on the top of the...
Government self-insures, there is no insurance policies.
Oh, that means that,
Government self-insures.
okay, that the schools Okay, that the elementary schools do not have like a insurance like we have at the house?
No,
Okay, perfect, perfect. That was the one clarification. And the last question was when the children, what is that? 1 second, I can't remember right now. Okay. Oh, when are the children from Colletteville will start moving? End of June, because they wanted plan to go with the kids, help the teachers. They would like to support the teachers, the parents, and have like a party for them to help them.
imagine the superintendent will be working with both schools to have some events prior to the end of school, so kids get integrated and used to that, but the actual first official date there will be in September.
Okay, perfect. And will the children from grade 7 still have a graduation in Colletteville School in June?
Yeah, Colletteville School does not close till June 30th,
Okay,
according to the motion I read out. Yeah.
well, perfect. Thank you so much. That was all the questions I have on the behalf of myself and the parents.
I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Carried. You can pick Justin or Kent Laidlaw.
Thanks, Everett.
I have.
Yeah, you Princeton folks drive safe, eh?
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, John,
You guys.
What time will the plow be at my house tomorrow?